Welcome back. Dizzy Gillespie, one of the most influential jazz musicians, or musicians in general, to share his gifts with us. The tune we're going to look at today is called Salt Peanuts, and it means absolutely nothing. It's complete gibberish, and it's just him being a silly, goofy guy that he was. The tune fits over the top of the chord changes of George Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. You might have heard of that one before. Nobody knows who actually composed this Salt Peanuts. I mean, you could say George Gershwin, because he came up with the underlying chord structure, but there's really not much of a melody. It's just Dizzy Gillespie being goofy. So he kind of sometimes gets credit for it, but we don't know if he actually composed it or if he just kind of made it up when he was goofing around. Lyrics don't mean anything. It's just salt peanut, salt peanut. Now, we did have a United States president in the White House in the late 1970s who was a peanut farmer from Georgia. His name was Jimmy Carter. And, of course, he took this tune as, one of his personal favorites, and even had Dizzy Gillespie perform it with him at the White House in 1978. Dizzy is kind of known for a couple of things. You see how he puffs his cheeks out? Yeah, that's just, he taught himself how to do that. Nobody ever said to him, hey, try not to puff your cheeks out. He just let it happen, and it worked for him. I would advise against doing that, but if you can sound like Dizzy Gillespie, then go for it. The other thing is the bell of his horn pointed up, and there are a lot of instruments like that now, but his was kind of an accident. The story that I heard is he was at a party, and he had his horn sitting on the fireplace mantle, and it got bumped, and the bell pointed up, and he's like, oh crap, my trumpet's broken. And he picked it up and he played it, and he liked it better, because it just changes how quickly the sound waves travel and bounce around and get to your ear. So that became kind of his signature. I've actually seen that horn that he's playing on in the picture here. It's in the Smithsonian in D.C. So if you ever get a chance to go there, I think it's in the box right next to one of Mr. Rogers' sweaters and maybe the ruby slippers from Wizard of Oz. So he considered one of his most influential mentors was a trumpet player named Roy Eldridge. And Roy and Dizzy had a great relationship, and they made lots of recordings together. One of the earlier things that happened to him, he was playing in a big band with Cab Calloway, who one of his big hits was Minnie the Moocher. He did it in the first Blues Brothers movie. It's pretty funny. But during a gig one night, apparently Dizzy Gillespie spit a spitball, and it hit Cab Calloway on the cheek during a show. And they went off stage, and Dizzy drew a knife on him, and they got in a bit of a knife fight. I don't know if any blood was drawn, but he got fired anyway. Bit of a hothead, you could say. The biggest influence or contribution that Dizzy Gillespie made to modern music, with Charlie Parker, he's credited for bringing bebop music to the forefront of the jazz scene in the 1940s. He had the kind of mind that worked the same speed as Charlie Parker, but he did it without medication, I think that's what they called it. He was not into the drug scene. He lived to a ripe old age, died in 1993. I was in college. I got to see him live a few times, once in high school and a couple times in college. He actually came to the U of I Jazz Festival once. Yeah, when I was in high school, I went and saw him. He followed the Baha'i faith, which is there's not a huge following of that, but he really identified with their teachings and beliefs, and he started that in the 1960s, kind of after the bebop era. And perhaps the most important thing to know about him is that he had an unsuccessful run for the President of the United States in 1964. He actually did run for president. He had balloons and t-shirts and buttons and all that. I would love to find one of those. That would be fun. And he had stacked his cabinet, like Charles Mingus was the ambassador to the UN, and he had like Sonny Rollins as the state Secretary of State. Yeah, he had all these jazz musicians in his cabinet. It's quite funny if you look it up. Okay, let's listen to a little bit of Salt Peanuts, and then you can go listen to the full recording. So he does a big explanation. I'll skip ahead here to where he starts playing. Yeah, it's not very loud on here. I'll turn it up. Look how much his neck expands. It's amazing. Let's try to get the crowd to do it. Salt Peanut, Salt Peanut. Yeah, he's just a goofy guy. That's a really big cymbal way up high like that. So that's a live performance somewhere. I don't know. Pretty fun tune. Should go listen to the full recording and check it out for yourself. Later.